Taylor Swift, we are told, writes about love, but that's rather like saying Disney makes cartoons about animals. Technically true, emotionally misleading. What Swift writes about is the performance of love, how it looks, sounds, and feels when filtered through the collective daydream of the American adolescent. Her songs, particularly the early ones, don't document experience, they simulate it, and her great early hit, Love Story, may be the purest expression of this simulation. A song so emotionally precise, so archetypically generic, it almost ceases to belong to a person at all. Listen closely. We were both young when I first saw you. The scene arrives as déjà vu. Balcony ball gowns, the whisper of summer air. Already, we're in a tableau of the textbook imagination. Then come the references, Romeo and Juliet, the Scarlet Letter, a 1-2 punch of sophomore symbolism. These aren't symbols Swift interprets, they're logos she deploys. They're emotional trademarks of a certain age and a class of American girlhood. The cultural shorthand of English class at 15. And here's the tell. These references have nothing to do with the stories themselves. Romeo and Juliet is not by any sane reading a love story. It's a bloodbath wrapped in verse. A feverish 72-hour tragedy in which two hormonal teenagers meet, marry, and die before the weekend's out. The Scarlet Letter is a Calvinist horror about shame, exile, and social control. But in Love Story, Swift flattens them both into mood and posture. Romeo becomes the prince, Juliet the princess. The Scarlet Letter, an emblem of humiliation, becomes a badge of passionate authenticity. Literature is no longer meaning, it's marketing. This is what I noted in another piece on the fate of Ophelia when commenters said Swift manipulates references to her own ends. Quite right. But the manipulation isn't poetic, it's promotional. These are not literary illusions, they're marketing triggers. The listener's mind doesn't leap to Shakespeare or Hawthorne. It clicks into a set of pre-programmed associations: forbidden, love, misunderstood girl, destiny, white dress, closure. The entire dramaturgy of teenage yearning compressed into a 4-minute commercial for the feeling of feeling. Swift, in this mode, is not an artist of experience, but an artist of recall. She traffics in the imagery that adolescence is taught to desire. That's her particular genius, to make the generic seem personal. The balcony is every balcony. The disapproving father is every father. Even the time of day is vague, summer air. Outskirts of town. It's all calibration, all atmosphere, like a perfume ad scored to a 1-5-6-4 progression. And yet, against all odds, it works. The perfection of Love Story lies in its impersonality. It feels confessional, but it's really compositional. A kind of sociological ventriloquism. Swift, the author, constructs the perfect young woman as a composite character, educated enough to have read Romeo and Juliet, sentimental enough to confuse tragedy for romance, ambitious enough to want to rewrite it with a happier ending. The song's miracle is that it persuades millions to see themselves in the composite. And here's where it turns strange and maybe even sinister. By rewriting Romeo and Juliet into a happy ending, Swift also rewrites the emotional education of her audience. In Shakespeare, love is destructive, impulsive, violent. In Swift's version, it's salvaged by marriage. He knelt to the ground and pulled out a ring. The tragedy becomes a bridal commercial. The taboo becomes triumph. Juliet goes to her death resisting parental authority, social expectation, and it is neutralized here by compliance. It's not rebellion, it's recuperation. Patriarchy is now a pastel, and yet the listener cheers. Why? Because Swift isn't writing for rebellion. She's writing for recognition. She's giving the young listener not a way out, but a mirror in which the culturally sanctioned version of passion looks just like freedom. It's the dream of romantic autonomy, mass-produced and gender-coded. I'll be waiting, she sings. All that's left to do is run. But of course, there's nowhere to run. The balcony, the garden, the gown, they're all props on the same stage. The real cleverness, perhaps the quiet cruelty, is that Swift knows this, or to be more precise, the entity called Swift knows this. The persona smiles, flutters, confides, but always with the calculation of something less human than human, a pop mechanism engineered to remember for us. Each reference, Romeo, Scarlet Letter, white dresses, operates as a cultural password, the kind of thing you'd underline in your copy of Norton's anthology before the midterm. They connect the listener not to Shakespeare or Hawthorne, but to each other, a mass of girls and women unified by the same syllabus, the same yearning, the same sense of recognition masquerading as selfhood. That's why Love Story feels so impersonal and yet so intimate. It's not about Swift's love. It's about ours, or more precisely, the love we've been taught to want. She's giving voice to the prescripted narrative of girlhood romance, the one institutionalized by school, church, and cinema alike, and she's doing it with the gloss of pop modernity. Not to critique it, but to package it beautifully. If Romeo and Juliet was Shakespeare's study of youthful delusion, Love Story is Swift's study of cultural conditioning. Both are fictions, but only one knows it. Swift's song may be marketed as confession, but its real artistry lies in curation, the selection and recombination of cultural myths into a feeling both universal and unthreatening. It's not a diary entry, it's a mirror polished to a high commercial sheen. In the end, Love Story isn't about lovers defying the world, it's about listeners submitting to the fantasy. Swift, or whatever entity bears her name, takes the curriculum of desire, those canonical tragedies handed down by the American school system, and turns them into something you can hum in the car. The perfect pop confession no longer needs a confessor, only a mirror turned to the right frequency of longing. And perhaps that's her secret weapon, not honesty, but mastery. The teenage Juliet never stood a chance. Taylor Swift, meanwhile, rewrote the entire syllabus.